How are you, Tobias? Welcome to the
Yeah,
podcast.
good. Thanks. Thanks. Fun to be for
I
that.
uh, I always ask when we have a new guest if this is their first podcast. Have you been on a podcast before?
I actually had my own podcast for some time.
Aha, all
Uh,
right, okay.
so I did, I think it was maybe 8 episodes.
Uh-huh.
And then it kind of, yeah, died off.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was pretty fun. It was just me and a buddy, and then we invited like different guests that were, yeah, doing something specific in marketing or,
okay. So it was marketing related. It wasn't something
yeah,
totally different. Okay, okay.
yeah.
Good. Well, today we're going to talk a bit about HubSpot, but before we do that, since you're a new guest, I thought maybe you could explain a little bit who you are and what you do at Zuma.
Yeah, so let's see. I started working with Zuma as a freelancer about 2.5 years ago. But then now this 1st of December, I really became a Zoomer. So that was a super nice change. And what I do is well, HubSpot. It's all
Mm.
HubSpot what I do. Um, my official title is HubSpot Solution Architect, but I like to describe it myself as uh, solving Sudoku puzzles the entire day. So HubSpot is the puzzle, and then I try to figure out why it's the best to put a 7 in that specific box,
I
if
get
that
it.
makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does. It does. That's a good explanation. Well, exactly. Well, that makes you a perfect guest for today's topic, really, because, like I said, I wanted to talk about HubSpot, but specifically focus on the mistakes that companies tend to make with HubSpot. And I know
Yeah.
you've worked with a lot of companies who, are having more experience with HubSpot or just starting off, and it's a huge, it's quite a wide-ranging platform. There's all kinds of different tools and unique aspects to it. So, like in your experience, having worked with HubSpot for quite a long time, like what are those common mistakes that you see generally?
Mm, so mistakes that happen a lot is more like I would say in the beginning, you see a lot of mistakes. Not so much around like how people are using HubSpot, but more on their expectations with it. Uh, HubSpot themselves and HubSpot partners are pretty good at selling HubSpot, but that comes with the consequence that sometimes the expectations are different from what they are. And that can be that it's, um, well, if we implement this, then we are going to generate more leads. Yeah, no, that's only half the story. Or if we implement this, then we're going to have higher quality leads. No, you just get an empty toolbox. It's what you do with it that makes a difference. Um, so I think that's of course a very common mistake, or that it's like implemented as a project. Like yeah, we have a project, HubSpot implementation, and okay, so we have someone available to do this the coming 2 months, and after that we'll see, and then nothing happens. Um, then there's maybe like 2 ebooks live and maybe 3 blogs published in a year, and then it's like, yeah, we're not seeing an ROI of this. Yeah, we're going to cancel. Like, oh, you didn't even try. Yeah, yeah. I think that's so around like expectations and like the amount of like time invested. Quite a lot of mistakes that come from there, and then a little bit more. Another thing is that there's no like real owner of the tool. Um, I think it's like it significantly boosts like your the amount of success you can get with the tool if there's like one person who's like the HubSpot hero who actually enjoys the tool, who likes the tool, who understands the tool, who gets a bit hyped about the tool, and that internally people can go to and ask questions. That kind of promotes the tool and comes up with suggestions in like meetings where maybe a partner is not always there and come up with a suggestion like, oh, hey, but we can maybe use HubSpot for that. Or, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that in that tool. Maybe we should move that over to HubSpot, or kind of an internal champion. Um, that's really like in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to go back to that thing about expectations, like, why do you think it is like that? And I suppose, how should people see HubSpot in that case? Because I mean, I've used HubSpot for a while as well, and I part of the reason that I like it is, is kind of a jack of all trades kind of thing. Like, it can do quite a lot, and it's at the same time fairly easy to use. But
Yeah.
I mean, you've worked with companies who are adopting it for the first time. Like, is that not how they see it?
Um, yeah. So I think there's a difference here in sort of type of company that you have. So sometimes you see a company where it's like there's a sales rep that's kind of sick of Excel sheets and starts a free account and then gets budget to upgrade to a sales starter and a sales pro and some other colleagues, and it kind of like organically grows. And uh, well, then maybe later and later they're like, okay, now we're maybe let's add Marketing Hub as well, and it's more like coming from like their own resource or research, solving their own, like the sales rep just trying to solve his complexity in his daily work, which is a very different starting point than say a sales rep from an agency or HubSpot convincing the uh, commercial manager of a company, like, yo, this will solve all the problems that you have, and there's like your life will be so much better and greater once you once you've bought HubSpot. So in that scenario, of course, I'm like over exaggerating quite a bit here, but in that scenario, the chance of like wrong expectations, I think, is a lot higher. Yeah.
Yeah, we it reminded me, actually, we had a webinar this week with Martin Ray, and he was
Oh, yeah.
talking about, when you adopt a new tool or a new system or something, you can it's usually better to, try and change your way of working to fit the tool, rather than, expect the tool to plug into your way of working. And maybe that's a kind of issue with HubSpot. People maybe have a dysfunctional process themselves and think,
Yeah.
oh, we'll get HubSpot and then everything will be better. But if you just carry on in the same way, with this extra
Yeah,
layer
exactly.
of complexity with this tool, you don't really see much effect, I suppose.
Yeah, just a new box for the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think that adapting to the adapting the process to the tool um, kind of depends on which HubSpot product we're talking about and how much you would have to do that. I think in uh, like if you're already like doing an inbound approach in your marketing, HubSpot is great um, for that part. Of course, probably not going to be able to manage also your media buys and stuff in there. But then, of course, I think for Service Hub, if I'm completely honest, for Service Hub, there's maybe more of process that will need to adapt to the tool than, for example, in Marketing Hub and Sales Hub. Uh, kind of depending, of course, where are you coming from? Did you already have a process in place or not? Like if you haven't worked with tickets before, if you haven't worked with a live chat before, you're gonna make quite some differences in your process when moving over to Service Hub. Where I think like with Sales Hub, the process can quite often stay the same. It's just enhanced with a lot of like nice tools that take a lot of time away uh, from the sales reps. Doesn't like makes them more effective. So yeah, I think it's always good to take into consideration like what's your current process. How would you process? Yeah, in an ideal world, what would your process be like? And then see, okay, how can we translate this like redefined process into HubSpot? Is there places where uh, we have to make a change from our desired process, either for the better or for the worse, in quotation marks? Um, yeah, and then it's because, you know, the thing with a tool that's built from a specific philosophy, and the philosophy is also very effective. If you're then going to recreate a process, it's probably going to fit pretty well in that tool built for such an effective process. Um, yeah, so for example, I worked with a scale up some time ago. Um, they had some sort of process with like SDRs and account executives, and it wasn't really defined. They had some steps, but and then like the first exercise that I did was sit down with a commercial with their CCO, and I said, okay, this is like for what you guys are doing. So they were doing something with like AI, and so their sales approach was maybe less on consultative selling, more on like provocative selling. Um, so kind of from coming from that approach, the best process would be this here. So sketch it out with all the steps and yada yada yada. Uh, and then I was like, oh yeah, but like we had a discussion like, oh yeah, but this one we should do a little bit, make a small tweak here and make a small tweak there, and then it was like approved after 15 minutes. And then of course when sketching that process, I already know this is going to work in HubSpot. There's no extra complexity here, and it's a best practice process. So then it was like, okay, cool. Implementation could go pretty quickly, and they were super stoked. That was
That was a good example. And you mentioned before, the typical, hopefully not typical for HubSpot, but it happens commonly that company will adopt HubSpot, and 6 months later they haven't got to where they wanted to be, or
yeah,
they haven't used it to its full potential, and then they say, no, this isn't working. Like, what do you think a kind of company that's at the start of that process should really focus on to build like a good foundation for their continued use of HubSpot? So like,
yeah,
maybe they shouldn't start off with like having a really good chatbot or something. That's nice to have, but maybe that's not the most super important thing. But what would be the good foundation?
yeah. So if they want to like prove the investment based on, or prove if it was a good investment based on time saved, that can be yeah, you can show that super quickly. Like, hey, used to take us 2 hours to make a landing page. Now it takes me 15 minutes to make a landing page. And I make landing pages 40 times a year. Okay, well, this is the time saved. Great. And then you can do that for all the different tools and wherever you feel like you're saving time. But then when it's more on like, yeah, time saving is all good and fun, but we want like lead generation and like higher sales qualified leads, then I would say in the beginning just focus on a couple of like quick wins. Just create a good ebook, and if you don't have any content available, well, you always have some content available. Just like grab 5 case studies, put them together in a PDF and call it like inspiration for how to blah blah blah, real life examples, and you have your ebook ready. Of course, with a bit of designing and some extra writing, and then just push that out on. Create a quick landing page, push it out on LinkedIn lead ads. That's they're pretty effective, I think. Still, we're now a little bit too late. I think, I'm not sure, but like the sponsor messaging or the sort of like chat bots you could build inside LinkedIn messaging. They were
Yeah.
really effective as well. But I just got an email this morning, and I think they're going to close it down end of the year for the EU. So maybe by the time this podcast comes out, it's too late.
Okay.
But
It'll come out in a few days, so everyone listening, just
rush,
go straight and do as much as you can before they die.
No, because that wow, that was effective. That was and then just like pump some money in to prove the concept, get the leads in, do like a simple nurturing flow. Don't if it's just for like proving the pudding. Just do like a simple nurturing flow and hand the leads over to sales. And then in the beginning, I would definitely don't start with lead scoring models. That's one thing that people are, something that's like written a lot about, and then people will think it's fancy, and they're like, yeah, let's build a lead scoring model, and they're like, oh, really? I spoke to
you have to kind of walk before you run.
Yeah. Spoke to a company a little bit ago, and they got this like AI specialized machine learning yada yada agency to help them with their like conversion prediction model / lead scoring model. And like long project later, big investment later, the result was, people that visit the pricing page have a higher tendency to buy. That was like the most useful conclusion from the whole project. I was like, really? So yeah, definitely don't, like, I would say lead scoring, don't like it. Lead scoring in the traditional sense with like demographics and firmographics and psychographics and behavior. Don't do it before you are at like 150 leads generated a day. And even after that, see if you really need it. Usually a simple model that's just based on behavior is sufficient. Not a big fan of that. The other elements.
No, it doesn't sound like it. And when you hear machine learning, AI, or big data, just run in the opposite direction, I suppose.
Yeah. Quite often. Or be very skeptical.
Yeah. That is a little bonus bit of good advice. Great. Well, thank you very much, Tobias, for joining today. And I hope you'll be back again for some more HubSpot episodes at some point.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, speak soon.
All right. Bye-bye.